Hi everyone, it's Elisa. Thank you for tuning back into my channel for another video. This is like a really awkward angle. Sorry about the mess. I've been painting. I have finals this week and next week, so I've been studying nonstop. It's just been really hectic, but I'm trying to balance everything for the sake of my own sanity. So I decided to do a request today. So this one is from someone who reached out via Instagram, and he sent me a voice memo describing his situation. So what I do when I listen to these voice memos, I can't read them to y'all, or I can't play it, but I take notes of everything, and then I kind of read the notes back to you. That way you understand kind of where you're coming from, or where they're coming from. And if you're going through a similar situation, you can see if this also applies to you if you're in a similar boat. So I'm going to read the notes, which I have on my laptop. And yeah, here we go. So this person, he is a male. He lives in Boston, and she lives in California. She was living there with a friend. He's a musician, and he met her last year when he traveled to California to pursue his music. He liked the way that she liked him. They felt this like kind of instant attraction to each other that he described as being unique. Very, just like a natural gravitational pull, as he described it. They spent the first month together nonstop, but then he ended up leaving, but then he came back to California to visit, and they had a great time. She temporarily, oh wait, I'm skipping a line. He met her grandma and some of her family, and then she decided to move in with him in Boston. So she moved from California to Boston because she was having issues with her friend. But however, the house that they were living in was being rented out with Airbnb, so I guess a part of it was like sanctioned off or whatever. He describes her as being selfless, angelic, helps others, she wants to pursue careers that involve helping other people. So she started school in Boston, and they started to create this life in Boston together. So a part that I specifically want to touch on is the fact that she stopped taking her Prozac medication. I'm going to come back to this at the end of my summary. So she stopped taking her Prozac because they both wanted to live a more natural life, a more holistic, pursue a more holistic approach to any issues that they were having. So after she began taking the Prozac, he noticed, and they both noticed, I guess, that things started to get a little tumultuous, things became a little difficult, stressful, lots of pressure, tension. So he started to kind of fall away from who he wanted to be in terms of pursuing his music career, his goals. I am so sorry about that. He mentioned that the root of the issue seemed to have started when the medication wore off, and that's why I'm emphasizing this, because I do want to talk about it after I'm done recapping everything. So, he felt like he was losing a little bit of his masculinity, a sense of pride. He never really felt like they were at home together. I know they were living together and everything, but if you're renting out your house to Airbnb and there's constantly people coming in and out, it doesn't really feel like you're home, which I can understand that. So there was a lot of stress going on, the medication, coming off of that, it's a big deal. And so if you're going through with that, she just moved to somewhere where she's never been. He wasn't really chasing his dreams as much as he had wished he was. Plus, someone living in your house, there was a bunch of pressure going on in our pressure cooker today. So, he felt like he bit off more than he could chew. So, they suggested that they take some space. So she went home to her parents and, I guess, talked to her parents about everything. He got to clear his head for a bit. He felt like he wasn't really providing as good as he can, but he also never had a good relationship with her parents, which is important to mention because I'm going to touch on that as well. They were together for 8-9 months. Everything kind of fizzled out in September of this past year, August, September-ish. He invested a lot into that relationship, they both did, but, after he broke up with her, he was experiencing kind of guilt, almost second guessing, which is completely natural, super normal, and it's a very justified feeling. I need chapstick. After that, he realized he made a mistake and he wanted her back. There's lipstick in my chapstick. Okay. He wanted her back, so he reached out. And when he initially reached out to her, she was very excited about it, as you could expect. But then, you know, she was kind of getting hot and cold, sending mixed signals. She told her parents, and I guess her parents were feeding bad things into her ear, primarily her dad, which I'm also going to touch on. So in December they had planned to meet, but, you know, she was like being kind of cold towards the end, so he canceled the trip. So he went back to California. Eventually they got to spend a couple hours together, but they didn't spend the night or anything. He felt like the dad got into her head, and he wrote her a letter encouraging space and distancing, being respectful, not like begging for her back, but not like saying I'm gonna move on, but kind of like, you know, why don't we take space, like encouraging a nice break in between the two. So he hasn't heard from her since, but ever since then they do play like the Snapchat story game where they, or I'm sorry, Instagram story, or maybe it was Snapchat, I don't know, where you view the story and then don't view it, and then I guess just like all these mixed signals on social media. So that's where we're at now. This was about a 17-minute voice message, so I think that's like the bulk of it, hopefully. So like I said, I don't have any notes as for what I'm gonna say, so if I'm like all over the place, I'm so sorry. I do have really bad ADHD, so my brain just kind of hops around from one place to another, but we'll get the point across either way. So where do we even start? First of all, thank you for reaching out to me. I always love when people confide in me, even though I'm just a stranger on the internet. It makes me happy to see that there's always people sending me requests and trusting me for information. So, and like I always mention, I'm not a therapist, not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, anything. I'm a psychology student, and I've been like a counselor for like children with social disabilities, but I'm not like a licensed therapist. So nothing that I say can really be held to me because I am just a kid and I don't really know what I'm talking about in essence of everything. So that's that. So I think when you were talking about her, I really could sense that there was a strong love in between the two of you. And that's important to mention because sometimes when I get these requests, I can tell that the person is like more angry, more frustrated, more like pissed off, more like rejected, but you feel more respectful. And it always is a breath of fresh air when I get a guy messaging me about the girl who he's like respecting, who he's like not trash talking, who he's like describing all of her best qualities and her best features. So I really appreciate that you did that because it makes it easier for me to want to do the request. I've had to shut down a lot of requests because of the guy like bad mouthing the girl or like speaking negatively on everything. And the reason why I avoid those is because I'm not getting two sides. I know I'm never getting two sides. Like here, I'm only getting your side, but it's much more veracious. It's much more credible when you're being respectful and you're kind of speaking fairly on it rather than just trash talking the girl, because then I'm like, well, obviously like half of what you're saying is probably not even true. So thank you for doing that. So you're at the place now where you want her back, and normally a lot of the time I'll be like, you know what, you shouldn't get her back, you shouldn't try to pursue this, but I don't feel that way in this case, which is weird, because every time a guy breaks up with the girl and tries to get her back, I'm like, don't do it, but like I don't feel that way here. I'm not against you getting her back, but I'm not also like completely for it, just because I personally lean towards the side that once a guy leaves you, he's gonna leave you again. You know, that's always been the case. I know there's some cases where like, you know, they try again a second time and it ends up working out, but like statistically speaking, first time is normally the last time. But you know, I gotta start being more open-minded and learning that not everything has to go the way that I think it does. So maybe, you know, it could work again if you try a second time. The fact that she moved from California to Boston says a lot about how she feels about you. I don't know what kind of girl she is. I know you briefly described her, but to move literally across the country to start everything new, and, you know, start a new school, a new relationship, it says a lot. It really shows that she trusted you. You made her feel comfortable. You made her feel like she had a new beginning. She, you know, had this new path that she could pursue. So that's really, really good. It tells me a lot about how she feels about you. I know that she has strong feelings for you because you never mentioned that she like went off, saw someone else. You know, you never mentioned that she rejected the idea of getting back together. You said she was excited about it, but her parents came in and started feeding her, you know, different things, and that's the reason why she didn't jump back into it, which I will talk about. So the thing I want to first start off by talking about is the whole Prozac medication thing. So you mentioned that, I don't know if it was when she moved to Boston with you, but that's when she stopped taking the medication. And within, some time you noticed that she kind of wasn't being the person that she was when y'all had met. She was acting a little different. She was having more mood swings, more sad. She would be late for class or like miss classes or stuff. And things weren't really working as smoothly. Now, I actually really, really, really like the fact that you brought this up, because I literally went through the same exact thing. Prior to lately, I don't know if that makes sense, but prior to lately, I was taking Prozac for years. Like, I've literally been on that medication for maybe like 4 years now. And when I met my current boyfriend, who I've been with for almost 2 years now, I met him and I was still on the medication. Now, I'm not really a pill person. I'm more like you. Like, I like the holistic treatments and stuff. I do take another medication that I need to take, literally, because my body will fall apart without it. But for the most part, I believe in vitamins. Like, literally, if you look at my nightstand, I have iron, I have joint supplements, I have D3, I have hair, skin, and nails, I have CBD oil, I have tea tree oil. I'm a big vitamin girl. I'm all down for the holistic things. And so is my family, which is what caused me to kind of turn into that direction. So when I first started dating my boyfriend is when I also realized I didn't really want to take the Prozac anymore. So I got off of it. I weaned myself off, because you shouldn't just cut and dry Prozac or any kind of medication like that. It's not good for you at all. And I noticed that things were starting to hit the fan. So much so that my junior year, I took a writing class, a creative writing class, because I needed the credit. And we had to write a short story that was about 10 pages, that was at least 10 pages long. Like, short story, 10 pages, but I guess that technically is a short story. And mine was called Sunflower, and I actually, the class really liked it. So we had to print copies for everybody in the class, and they had to go home and read it and come back and discuss the thoughts, and mine was literally about that. Mine was about a girl and a boy who had met, and they were dating, and she stopped taking the medication, and then he started to fall out of love with her because he was not, she wasn't the person that he fell in love with. And the relationship became extremely rocky, and she wanted to, take the medication because she knew it would be the only chance at saving the relationship, but she just felt like that was wrong. So I forgot what happened at the end of the story. It's something with a sunflower on the front porch. I have bad memory, but I do believe they ended up breaking up. But they had a really good relationship. But the moral of the story is, I wrote that about myself. My boyfriend and I didn't break up after I stopped taking the medication, but we did have some issues. Honestly, I have really bad memory, but I know that we were starting to have a lot of arguments. There was a time where literally we were at a football tailgate, for a game, and I go to a huge university, or I did, RIP, it's finals week. And this was a huge tailgate, hundreds and hundreds of people, and him and I were there. But this was 2 weeks after I stopped taking the medication, and I was just so depressed. I never use the word depressed, but I need to use it here because that's the only way I can describe it. I was just so out of it. I felt like I was in a haze, almost in a dream. I felt uncomfortable. Nothing felt real or right. These were my friends, these were my people, this was my boyfriend, this was my school. These were tailgates that I was familiar with. This was an environment that I was used to, but for some reason I was just so miserable that day. I was just so sad. And my boyfriend left me for 5 minutes to go get a drink or something. And I just lost it. I left. I walked from the tailgates all the way back to my house without telling anybody. And this was it took me 45 minutes to an hour to get home. It was bad, because there's a bajillion cars everywhere, and I lived pretty far away, and I didn't want to call an Uber or anything because it was expensive, and I also am terrified of Ubers. So I walked home, and after my boyfriend realized I was gone, he literally stayed on the phone with me the whole entire time walking home, because he knew what I was going through. He knew that I was it's called discontinuation syndrome, and that happens after you stop taking Prozac. Your head kind of starts to withdraw, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But he really wanted me to come back, but I was telling him that like I was not in a good state of mind, and it wasn't him, like he wasn't the issue, but it was me. Like I just felt like I wasn't myself, I wasn't safe, I was like freaking out for no reason. I was just so on edge, I had to leave. And I remember that whole walk home, it felt like a dream. Like nothing felt real. Like there were cars going past me, but everything just felt like it was in slow motion, and I remember that so vividly. But he stayed on the phone with me, and he tried convincing me to come back, but after I kind of explained everything, instead of focusing on me coming back to the tailgate, he was focusing on me getting to my house safe. So as soon as I got to my house safe, like an hour later, and this is his senior year, and like he's spending a tailgate on the phone with me, like I felt so bad, like after I realized what had actually happened. As soon as I got home, he hung up, and you know, he enjoyed the rest of the tailgate. But that's why when you were talking about that, I was like, holy crap, like I know what she's going through. I know what they are going through, like you and her, because I know that when you stop taking those medications, weird things happen. And that wasn't the first time that something bad happened to me. Like eventually I got back on the medication, but then, you know, I just didn't feel right, so I got back off, and now I'm off. I've been off of it for a long time now, and I will say, you are not yourself when you stop the medication, but that doesn't mean that you can't go back to who you used to be. You know, it doesn't mean the old you is gone. It just means you need to do things to build back up that old version of yourself. And that's exactly, I don't know if she got to do that. You didn't really talk about her journey or the outcome with the discontinuation, her like getting off the medicine, but it is a process. You don't stop the medication and instantly become who you are. It is almost like therapy. Like you need to kind of build up who you were. That's why I've been painting nonstop. I've been making videos. I've been just keeping busy studying, because you need to do things that the old you would love in order to kind of bring that old you back. And it completely is possible, but in the meantime, it's never a normal recovery period when you're getting off that medication. So I completely see how if you met her and like she was already on the medication, then I can see how stressful it is for her to get off of it, because it's almost like taking off this outside layer, and she's showing you who she really is without it, like that stripped raw version of herself. And I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety in that. I'm sure there was a lot of tension, a lot of stress, because like when I was like unraveling myself to my boyfriend Justin after not taking the medicine, I felt so vulnerable, so like, I guess, revealed. Like I just didn't feel right, and I thought there would be 1,000 times where he would just give up, but he never did. And I don't want to say that you gave up on her, because that just sounds really bad, but it kind of sounds like after she stopped taking the medication, that's when things fell apart, and then you broke up with her. But I'm not saying there's a direct correlation there. I'm not saying like she quit the medication, you dumped her. Like obviously there was a lot in between that. There was like y'all never really feeling like you had your own place, the parents having an influence on things, you straying away from your music, which is a huge thing. When you pursue a new relationship, when you're creating something new with someone else, the number one thing you can do to destroy that is to lose sense of who you are and what you like to do. That is the recipe for breaking a relationship. A real relationship isn't two people coming together to make one. It's two people maintaining their individuality and sharing that together. But you're still, watch my video called My Other Half. Like there's no such thing as another half. You are a whole person, and when you come together with another person, you don't create one, you create two, which is great. It's two people experiencing things together. So I think the combination of you losing your goals and your dreams, that's enough to completely make a person feel like they're doing something wrong, even if you're not in a relationship. If she hypothetically would have never been in this situation and you would have been distracted with something else, and you would have lost track of your music, you'd be experiencing the same kind of stress, the same kind of de-identification. Like you lose your sense of self. So that is the issue. Like I feel like when you are with the right person, and maybe she is the right person, but it's also how it's your efforts that build your relationship. So let's say she is hypothetically the right person, you still need to make the you need to make the conscious decision to still pursue your music. But I felt like you were so distracted with her and with maintaining everything, like your money, your this, your that you let go of who you were and what your goals are. So that's the issue. And the reason why I didn't give up on your case, like when you said you wanted her back, instead of me saying no, like don't do it, is because I think the root of it isn't you and her. Like, you and her aren't the problem. It's you and yourself and her and herself. Like, I feel like this might be a case of the right person, wrong time kind of situation, because the kind of relationship that you described between you seems so genuine. Like, all the problems that you explained, they seem like they can be fixed. You don't have a place of your own because you're selling it out to Airbnb. Cool. You could one day stop doing the Airbnb, like if you can afford to stop doing it. You felt like you weren't pursuing your music and you were distracted from that, you can fix that. Like, set aside time to really focus on your music. You felt like she wasn't herself after the medication. Guess what? That takes time to rebuild. For me, it took months. It took like maybe 6-8 months before I really got back to who I was, before I felt like I could wake up and go out with, what's the word, go along with my day. Is that how you say it? I don't know. Go out with my day and be myself without the influence of a psychotropic drug operating in my head. Like, it takes time to do that. Everything that you're describing can be fixed with time. So, like, what's stopping you? You know, like, I know, like, logistically, there's a bunch of things that are stopping you. You live in Boston. She's, like, God knows where. And the last thing I'm going to talk about before I sum everything up is the parent influence. Listen, when a guy breaks up with a girl once, the parents are never going to support y'all getting back together. Oh, I'll tell you that right now. My ex-boyfriend, he broke up with me once, and my parents, like, forbade me to ever talk to him ever again. And what did I do? I was stupid. I was like, no, I know better. And I went back. Like, I was an idiot. I shouldn't have done that. But you know what? Lessons learned. Her parents are going to be very skeptical of you now because you left their baby girl. And that's just something that you can't understand unless you're a parent. Like, I don't understand it because I'm not a parent, but I agree with it, if that makes sense. So the way you can fix that is also with time. You know, if you do plan on getting back with her or, like, trying to get her back, you need to make sure that this isn't going to be something that you just dump and leave again, you know? Because if you leave her once, okay, you're maybe not the best person. Leave her twice, whew. You better change your address, change your name, change your identity. You need to really make sure that you're reacting appropriately. You're reacting out of a genuine love for her instead of just your own selfish, like, withdrawals. So that's another important thing, is that you need to really analyze where these feelings are coming from. Are you feeling these because you're uncomfortable with the moving on process? You don't like moving on. You think it's weird. You feel like you just don't want to go through the whole breakup phase, dating someone new. It's just a lot of work, you know? Or is it because you genuinely do see a future with her? There's a huge difference between the two. There's a huge difference between getting back with someone because it keeps getting, like, so bright and dark in here, and it's, like, making me dizzy. Do you want to get back with her because it's hard to move on? Because it really is hard to move on. I'll tell you what, like, I'm really bad at moving on. It's a difficult process. It's painful. It's a lot of work. But thank God I don't need to do that right now. Knock on wood. Hopefully I don't ever have to move on from someone ever again. But are you not breaking up with, or are you not getting back with her because, like, why? What's your intention? You know, what's your goal? Do you see her, you know, maybe having kids with her one day? Do you see y'all sharing a house together, cooking dinner together, getting in bad fights together? Because it's gonna happen. It always does. Do you see hosting Christmas parties together, buying a dog, like, all these things that you see in your future? Does she have them in her future? Do they align? Is that possible? Or do you just, is there a tiny part of you that admits that maybe she is the wrong person? You know, maybe it was more of like an infatuation thing, a lust thing. Maybe it was more of a phase. Maybe she was just another kind of lesson to learn. And that maybe there is another person. Like, where's your head? You first need to analyze, like, where your head is at. And when you determine that, it's really easy to make your next step. And this isn't something that you just think in a day. Like, oh, yep, she's my soulmate. Yep. No, it doesn't work like that. It takes a long time to kind of figure that out. But, you know, once you have a good understanding of where she is in your life and in your future, that's when you can act accordingly. Now, if you do have this realization that you want her back and she's, like, the one for you and she doesn't feel the same way, obviously, it's not meant to work out between the two of you. I feel like maybe she does want you back. She might. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't, and now she does. Like, I don't know where her head is at. But, you know, if y'all are friends on Facebook and she's watching your stuff, there could probably still be an interest there. I don't know. I would, after you analyze everything and really think about where your head is at, I would reach out. I would ask if you can maybe call her, or if you can schedule a visit and just like say, like, just unload it at once. You know, the last thing a girl wants is like a million messages insinuating that you probably want her back. Like, hey, I want to talk. Never mind, I don't want to talk. Like, hey, I kind of want to talk about something. Let's do it later. Like, instead of just like a little bit here, a little bit there, just find one way, one time, one method to just tell her everything. Put the ball in her court and let her decide. Say, I'll talk to your parents if I need to. Like, I'll literally like write them a letter and apologize if I need to, but like, you really need to fight for what you want, otherwise you're not going to get it. So if you have the opposite conclusion that she's not the person for you, well, unfortunately, that's where the moving on process needs to begin, because the more you fight that realization that's more time that you're spending leading the both of y'all on. So make that decision, figure out if you're really in it with her, if you're just kind of struggling moving on, and then after you do make the decision, if it's like want her back, then do it at once. Say it once, say everything, get everything off your chest. Don't beg for her back, because like girls don't really like that. Like, yeah, like we like hearing a little bit like, yeah, I really want you back, but we also want, like, you were a great girlfriend to me. I know I could be a good man for you. I know we can provide for each other. But before you jump into all that, you also need to remember, or put in the forefront of your mind, what are you going to do different this time? Because if you go back to the old relationship that you just came from, it's going to fall apart just like it did. You need to build a new relationship for yourself, for each other. So this is going to consist of more time for your music, okay? This is going to consist of y'all both doing your own things to keep you in check with yourself. Guess what? If she's experiencing this discontinuation, then maybe she needs a good hobby, just like you have your music. Like, what's her hobby? So this time, like, if you spend 3 hours a day doing music, she can spend 3 hours a day doing her hobbies to help her get back to herself, doing things that help her feel more in tune with herself, whether it's yoga, painting, pottery, archery, like kickboxing, like whatever she loves, do it. And maybe there's some things that y'all would love together, like couple activities, like, I don't know, like, what do y'all like to do together? Go to a trampoline park? I like trampoline parks. Maybe do something like that. That'd be really fun. Design a new relationship and tell her that. Say, listen, like, I know what I want for us. It's going to be so different. It's going to be better. It's going to require effort. It's going to require work. It's going to require change. But I know that we can do it. Like, I'm motivated to, like, you're what I want. You're who I want. And this is what I want to do to make it work. So design a new relationship. Make sure she's what you want. If you are fortunate enough to have that new relationship opportunity, make sure you really stick to it, because as soon as things start to fall back to what they were, they're going to fall apart just like they did. And one of the main things you need to work on is also a relationship with the parents. A relationship with the parents is a big thing, especially if it's long term. My boyfriend doesn't really know my parents that well. He's met them like multiple times, actually, like when we went bowling and like for dinners and stuff, but for the most part, like, he doesn't really come here as much as I go to his house, because he lives in Florida. There's just more stuff to do down there. And I also lived in Florida for a bit, so I was always at his house. So I have a pretty good relationship with his parents, but he doesn't really know mine because he doesn't come to South Carolina for anything anymore. Like, but you know, we're working on that. He doesn't have a bad relationship with them. Like, nothing has happened. I mean, he has seen them probably like a dozen times. There was a time where we would bowl every Sunday. So like, yeah, they're tight, but they're not like, if his car breaks down and my phone is off and his parents' phones are off and his friends' phones are off, he's not going to call my parents. He's going to keep maybe looking for other contacts before he resorts to that. But it's nothing bad. Just like build a relationship with the parents, because it really is important when you have that foundation. Like, a foundation is such a good thing to have, which is another reason why I think it's good that she wants to stray away from the medicine, because she's returning to the foundation of herself. So going back to the roots of everything helps, and that's another thing that you need to implement in your redesigned relationship. I do need to wrap up this video soon, because 30 minutes is when I start having upload issues, but I really do want to thank you for everything, for, I guess, telling me everything, and I hope that my advice helped. I do think I covered everything. I don't have time to reiterate everything like I normally do, but thank you for the request. Let me know how it goes. I really hope you make the right decision. decision for both of y'all's sakes. If y'all have any relationship advice requests, I'm going to put my stuff down below, my Instagram, email, whatever, even my Cash App and my Venmo, because your girl is struggling and I haven't got my unemployment check yet, so that's going to be there. Thank you for watching. I hope things get better, and keep a good head on your shoulders and make your decisions carefully. All right, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.